Welcome back, everyone. Patrick from Studio 300, and this is part 2 of the electronic music production tutorial. In this video, we're going to be laying the foundation for our new song. We're going to lay out an arrangement by adding arrangement markers before adding any tracks to the song. Once we have mapped out our arrangement, we're going to lay the foundation for the song by adding drums and bass. Let's get started. If you still have the session pulled up from last episode, go ahead and delete the pop piano region. If you didn't save the session from last time and you would like to follow along with this video, go ahead and create a new session. Set the tempo to 140 beats per minute, leave the signature at 4/4, and change the key to G major. Before we add any loops, let's go ahead and plan out an arrangement. Click on this drop-down menu above the tracks, and then click the plus next to the arrangement. This creates an intro marker for our song, but we only want it to be 4 measures, so I'm going to grab the end here and drag it. Then I'm going to hit plus again. Now it's created a verse. I do want a verse, and I am going to have it be 8 bars total, from bar 5 through bar 12. I'm going to hit the plus again, and it's created a chorus. I actually don't want a chorus first. I want a pre-chorus. So I'm going to click on where it says chorus, and we see that pre-chorus is not one of our options. So I'm going to click rename instead, and just type in pre in front of chorus, and hit enter. I'll hit plus again, and it's added a bridge, so we're going to change this to chorus. I'm going to keep hitting plus to fill out my arrangement. We're going to add a verse, another pre-chorus, which I'll have to rename in here, another chorus. Now I'm going to add a bridge, but I'm going to knock this down to only 4 measures again. Let's hit plus again after the bridge, and it's created an outro. I don't want my song to end yet, so I'm going to click on this and rename it pre-chorus. If you want to label each of your pre-choruses and choruses to know which one it is, you can always type in a number after it. This is actually the 3rd pre-chorus. I'll change this to chorus. I'll add another chorus. We'll have the chorus repeat at the end. And now we'll do our outro. Let's go back and label each of our pre-choruses and verses with the number that it is. There we go. All done. Now when I zoom out, we can see my entire song is laid out in the arrangement window. Having an arrangement window can help put loops into the song without actually playing the track back. If I know my chorus begins here, I can just move the loop to the beginning of the chorus because I know that's where I want it to come in. Before starting, let's get rid of these other subheadings in this top menu. We really only need to see the arrangement for the purposes of this video. I'm going to turn off the marker, signature, and tempo. Now let's begin building our song. Go ahead and delete the full cathedral instrument track we had previously been using. The pop-up window will come up to create a new track since there are no tracks now in the project. To get our song started, we're going to add a drummer track. Select the drummer track and then select the genre of drummer you would like for this song. Don't worry if you don't know what kind of drummer you want yet. You can always change this later. I'm going to select the electronic drummer and hit create. As soon as I create the drummer track, you can see that it has created a different region of the drummer track for each region I created on the arrangement. When we select these, we can see that the pre-choruses match, the choruses all match, and the verse settings all match. But each of these regions sounds different. Drummer tracks are really handy for creating variety and keeping your song moving by allowing you to create different regions for different parts of the song. You can copy and paste them like any loop, but you can also go in and tweak the individual settings for each loop separately to give the song a little more movement. Go ahead and click play to see what the drummer track came up with on its own. Then when you're ready, come back to the video and we'll continue. Alright, let's dive into the drummer track a little more and start tweaking some of these settings to create even more variety within the drum performance, within each category of music. I'm given different options for drummers. Within the electronic, I have Magnus, Leah, Jasper, Ronnie, and Julian. Each of these is going to change the kinds of sounds that the drum is playing, as well as what notes get hit. I'm going to go ahead and select Magnus Big Room, which is what we originally had, and then I'm going to close the instrument library for now. When I select a drum region, I get access to a bunch of other settings for that region alone. You'll see on the left-hand side of these settings, more beat presets. I'm going to stick with custom for now, but you can experiment with each of these to see how they change the sound. Next to this is a spectrum between soft and loud and simple and complex. This is a great tool to use to slowly build your drums from soft and simple to louder and more complex as the song progresses. Let's listen to the intro as it was before I do anything. Now I'm going to drag this to the soft and simple side of things, because it is just my intro after all. See how less is happening there now? Next to the spectrum is a menu of the different drums that comprise the drum set, and also which ones are currently active in the selected region. For the intro, I'm going to turn off the percussion. I'll leave the shaker and hi-hat, as well as the cymbal off. I'm going to turn off the claps and turn on my kick. Let's play it back again. We're getting somewhere, but I'm going to change a few more settings. Next to each row is a selector for a different arrangement of that part. I'm going to select the very last one here for the kick drum and the second one for my shaker and hi-hat. I'm going to move this over just a little more complex to see if I can get a little more kick drum in my region. That's better. Since this is the intro and nothing else is going to really play with it, I can add a little swing to give it a little more of a backbeat. Next, I'm going to select my verse. For this, I'm going to leave the claps off again, as well as the snare. I still want it to mostly just be my kick, shaker, and hi-hat carrying the beat. I'm going to drag this down to a little louder than what the intro was, but not too loud, and still keep it in about the same complex region. I'll still leave some swing in there, and I'm going to add some fills. You can see when I add fills, it adds some hits, typically towards the end of the region. So even though I had the claps off, it still added claps for my fills, but I'm okay with that. I just don't want them going off all the time right now. For the pre-chorus, I'm going to make it a little louder, still in about the same complex, maybe a little more complex now. I'll change my cymbals and shaker to the second one, and I'll leave this on the last one again. Again, you can experiment with these and see how it changes the beat for the given instruments in that category. Next, for the pre-chorus, I'll select my last one because I like that one. The third one this time, turning off percussion again. I don't want any swing for my pre-chorus. I'll still do some fills, and we'll go still a little louder. Now onto the chorus. Turn off the percussion, turn on the shaker, and now we'll leave the snare and the claps on. We'll go with setting number 3 here, as well as for the cymbals and shaker. We'll throw in some fills to add a little edge at the end. And we still don't want to push the complexity yet. We're only in the first chorus. Let's see how the pre-chorus leads into the chorus. Great. Now at this point, I'm on to my second verse, and I don't want the drums to do too much different from what they did in the first. I can either go back and forth between the two regions and copy each one as I go back and forth, or I can simply copy this verse and paste it over the other one. Thereby replacing the verse region with the verse 1 region. I do want it to be louder than the original one was, especially since the pre-chorus and chorus were so loud. Let's move it up a little more. We're going to do the same for my pre-chorus here. And go back to the one we had before. So I'm going to Command C and copy that. Line up with the start of my pre-chorus here. Paste it in. And again, we're just going to make it a little louder so that the drums keep getting a bit of an edge to them. Do the same for the chorus. So now we've got my verse, pre-chorus, and chorus all kind of doing what they did before, just a little louder. However, I want to do a little trick here to make this chorus stand out from the last one. And I'm actually going to have this pre-chorus end before the fill. Let's compare the two. This is the first pre-chorus into the chorus. And this is going to be the second one. Sometimes introducing a little silence before an important part of a song can actually have it stand out more, and in the case of a chorus, have it stand out from the other ones in the song. Now we're on to the bridge. There's only the one in the song, and it's only 4 measures. I do want it to stand out from the other parts of the song. So they've already left the kick out, and I'm going to leave it that way. I don't want any kick here. I don't think I want the claps, and I'm also going to take out some of the percussion, but I'll leave some in. I don't want any fills here, though. Let's see what we've got. Great. Now we're at our third pre-chorus. We're going to go back to our second one and copy the settings again. We're going to make it even louder. We're going to add more fills this time. Let's see how that is. Not bad. I think that I want this one to end even sooner than the last one did. That was kind of neat. I kind of wish it did what it did here, over here as well. Let's see if I can get it to do that. What happens if I do this? Ooh, there we go. And now I'm going to loop this part to fill in what I deleted. This way I get that cool fill here. And then it goes back to the original loop. And we still get that pause going into the next chorus. Let's come back and copy our chorus here. Let's make this louder and more complex now because we're getting into the latter part of the song. And a little more fills. And we have another chorus here. Let's copy this, paste it one more time. We're going to make this one a little simpler but louder. And now we have our outro. And I actually don't think we're going to want any kind of part for our outro in the drums. The outro will only be some other instruments. Let's go ahead and listen to the entire drum track now, just on its own, to see what kind of changes it goes through as the song progresses. Come back, then we'll add some bass. Now that we have our drummer track all set up, let's go ahead and start adding some bass to really build the foundation of this song. Open the loop browser, select the instrument filter, and then select bass, and we'll leave both synthetic and electric basses in here. We want to make sure we're looking by key, and we want to find the G key. This way we can use both the audio and software loops. Start clicking on loops to see if you can find a loop that you like. I found one I liked. It's called Bass Waves Bass 2. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new track for this. I think I might use this on my verse, so I'm going to place it here under the verse. Let's listen and see how that sounds. It's a pretty simple bass riff, and I think it fits the verse well, but I am going to tweak the sound a little. I'm going to go to its channel and add a plugin to add a little more distortion on the bass and give it a little more of an edge. Let's go down to distortion and select the bit crusher. I'll do a stereo plugin in this case. While we listen back to it, I'm going to tweak the setting. Cool. So I added a little more drive, but then I used the mix to actually mix the distortion into it so that it's not too overwhelming. I also want to add a bit of a delay to this to make it a little wider. We'll go down to delays and add a stereo delay here. Now I only want to delay the high end, so I'm going to roll off the low cut pretty high. I don't want any of that low or mid information in here. Let's put that a little more in the mix too. Just adds a little more to that bass riff than what was already there. Often when I'm adding instruments or parts to my arrangement, I will tweak them on the fly to get them sounding how I want them to sound, instead of leaving it for later. If you want to just get the parts to the track now and mess with the settings after the fact during the mixing process, that's fine too. But I like to usually get them sounding a little more how I want them right away. Let's go ahead and copy this bass part to the other verse. Now, there's a lot more to this arrangement than just the verse though, so we need to find a couple more bass parts. There's another bass here I like called the balancing act bass. Pretty neat. Now, I could add this to its own separate track, but I actually want to try and see what it sounds like if it plays through the Bass Waves bass emulator first. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to drop it in here on the pre-chorus. Let's see how this track changes how that sounded. That's a very different sound, and I like it. I'm going to go ahead and copy it to my second pre-chorus. And then I'm going to paste it here to the chorus, but I'm actually just cutting it down to move it to the intro. Go ahead and listen to the intro, verse, and pre-chorus and see where we're at. Now that we've got that, let's go ahead and duplicate this balancing act one more time to the last pre-chorus, which is going to be right here. After that, we're going to find another bass part to fill in the choruses, as well as possibly the ends of the pre-chorus. We're going to scroll through the audio loops and find a good audio loop bass. I like the accelerating gate bass. Pretty cool and very different from the bass wave bass that we already have. I'm going to use this as an end to my pre-choruses to lead into the chorus. Zoom back in here and line up that ending right into the chorus. For this first one, I'll use the whole thing. Probably don't need it that loud though. It's not very bassy though. I'm going to add a little more bass here. I'll turn on my EQ and just boost up this low shelf a little bit on it. I want to give it a little more movement since I have the other bass part there. I'm going to go down to modulation and add something called a microphaser, which will move it from the left to the right. I'm going to select the micro light setting and see what that sounds like. Cool, just a little bit of movement there, not too much. I also want to get rid of this bass part now for the second half of that. Just so it stands out more. Remember, you can always move it back if you decide you want that, and it's only removing the one. We haven't done that for the other pre-choruses. I'm going to copy and paste this now to the next pre-chorus, pre-chorus 2. And this time, I really only want the very end of it. We still need something to put on the chorus, and maybe fill out the verses and pre-chorus a little more. Let's leave the bass and go to just the synths. Some of these can still be very bass heavy. Personally, I like these Lost in Ibiza ones. There's several different ones, so make sure you grab the right one. I'm going to start with the Ibiza chord layers. And we'll put that on the first half of the chorus. Go ahead and loop it so that does the second part. For our second chorus, we're not going to add that. We're going to add a different one. We're going to find Angelic Warm Pad number 1. And we're going to put this on its own track under the chorus. Let's go ahead and turn that down a little. And what I actually want to do is I want to push both of these chorus bass parts kind of a little further back. So I'm going to add a reverb to them to pull them away from the front and push them further back in the mix. I'm going to select this first one. And I'm going to go down to the reverbs and select Chromaverb Stereo. And since this song already has a pretty big feel, I don't want to use a room reverb. I'm going to go to the chambers and we'll go with orchestra chamber. So now my room size just got bigger. We're going to add a little more pre-delay to push it further back from the direct sound. And we're actually going to push the wet signal up all the way. And we're going to pull back the dry signal to get it where we want to sit. Great. Once I have this setting, I'm actually going to go to our mix window, grab this reverb from here, hold Option, click and drag it over to my other chorus bass part. And now I have the same reverb on both of them. So let's go to that second chorus now and listen to that. Now we're onto the bridge. And again, the bridge is going to really stand out from the other parts. Let's go back to the basses. Track down the one in the G key called Metamorphosis Bass. I'm going to drag that over to the same accelerating bass track we were using before. Duplicate it into there. And actually, I think I want that in my pre-chorus as well. So I'm going to pump that over here. Not for the whole thing, but for most of it. Let's grab this, hold Option, and drag our other accelerating bass part back over here. Zoom in and pull it the rest of the way. Let's get rid of that. All right, and that leads us right into our last two choruses. Now for this, we want our bass to hit differently. So let's first find the hectic alarm bass. We're going to put that on the accelerating gate bass as well. We'll loop that over several times. And we're going to add one other kind of bass, because that's a very almost high-pitched noise. It's not very bassy. There's some bass there, but we want to fill it out a little more. So we're going to add another bass, and this is going to be a software bass to our software bass track. And we're looking for towering high-rise bass. Slide that in there. Duplicate it. And then we're going to grab our warm pad from earlier. Add that to our chorus at the end. Twice. We'll zoom out here and look at our full arrangement, see if we're missing anything here. Let's go back to our bridge. Let's see if there's any synth vocals in here in our key. Yeah, let's throw that in here. And we'll go ahead and set that one on our angelic pad. We'll see. Sometimes I like to just put them on tracks that are already here, especially if I want it to, like, maybe I want this to be further back and I know I have the verb here already, or maybe I want to see just what the other settings do to it. I don't think that's lined up right. Let's scooch it a little more. And it should just be for the length of the bridge. And I don't know what we're doing for the outro yet. I want to build up the rest of the song, and I feel like the outro will kind of present itself when we get there. And let's go to these last two choruses. We'll listen back to them and then maybe add a couple more things. Cool. Now that we listen to them, I think the second one needs a little something else. So I'm going to grab this chord layer that we used on the first chorus and bring it back over. And I think I want this to go into my outro. We'll see. Just make that outro a little longer. I think we need more for our verses now, after we built up our choruses so much. Let's grab these again and put them in here some more. Go ahead and add this some more. And we'll go right up to there. So now we've got that built up a little more. Got it in our verse, some of our pre-chorus, our chorus, all the way through our next verse and pre-chorus. You don't have to match each part of the arrangement to its duplicates. You can have some variety and some silence and some changes in what the different instruments do to keep it varied and keep the listener on their toes. Let's move this bass part back to right about there. Just move that bass part out of that way. that really opens up that second chorus. So that's going to conclude the second video. So again, we created an arrangement track for our song before we added anything to the actual song, before we started picking up any loops. And then once we created the drummer track, that created a region for each part of the arrangement on its own, which we then went into, tweaked, and came up with an initial beat for our song. Once we had that beat, then we started just building the bass part to really lock in that foundation. We added some plugins to those bass sounds to get the plugins sounding exactly how we wanted them to sound on the track, while also doing some volume adjustments on the fly to make sure they're all sitting with the drums in about the right spot. In the next video, we're going to take the foundation that we made today, and we're going to add more parts to it. We're going to get a melody line somewhere in there, as well as some other instruments to fill it out. See you then.